Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for the Muffed Podcast.
It's Friday. Thank God, little homie, it's Friday. Let me get it on a Friday. Thank God, little homie, it's Friday. Yeah.
Yo, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode number 2 of the Muffed Podcast. My name is Boaz, and today, I don't know if you've noticed, but there's nobody interrupting me today. My partner in crime, my co-host, Lemiter, he's not here today, so it's just going to be me. So I'm going to apologize. This is going to be a little bit of a shorter episode. I think last episode was about an hour, maybe a little bit less, but this episode will be, I don't know, about 20 minutes. I think that's what we're going to go with, 20, 30 minutes. And I just kind of wanted to go quick of what's going on. It's preseason week 3. It's kind of quiet. I don't know, not a whole lot of things are going on in the NFL. So I don't know. Let's just jump into what's been happening in the preseason, especially like last week. So the guys that I'm looking high on are Daniel Jones and Tony Pollard after the last 2 weeks. And Daniel Jones for sure. That's one guy who, man, everybody roasted him, especially Baker Mayfield. You heard the story that he was kind of like even surprised by the pick. But I think Daniel Jones came in and he's kind of got like the same Baker Mayfield type of vibe with him. He's got the chip on his shoulder, and I think he's ready to ball out. And then Tony Pollard is the other guy. He's the second guy that I think I'd be really interested into looking in, maybe like in fantasy or something. But if Ezekiel Elliott's not there, I think Tony Pollard, like Jerry Jones is right, he can carry the rock. And the Cowboys' offense is very much revolved around the running game. So, and the running game complements the passing. So I think they need a running back. So if Ezekiel Elliott's not there, it's going to be Tony Pollard. He's going to be their workhorse guy. And for fantasy purposes, that's amazing. You can pick him up if you drafted already. If you're drafting, you can still get him in the later rounds. And say Ezekiel Elliott comes back, he could still be in the catching game. He could still be like some PPR points. But I think if you're going to be drafting him, I think what you're really going for is hoping that Tony Pollard is going to be he's going to be the workhorse back and getting all the yards. And so that's cool and all, but let's transition into the guys who I think have kind of underperformed. I would say the number one guy is for sure Kyler Murray. Like, number one overall pick, you kind of expect him to be good. And to be honest, he's been anything but good. Like, he's shown athleticism. You can see that he scrambles in and out. But honestly, it could be a Cliff Kingsbury offense. That could be what's at fault. But Kyler Murray just, I don't know, he hasn't been what was promised. He's not as good as advertised. He's not as good as we saw him in Oklahoma. And honestly, of course, that's one of those things that in due time it'll fix. I don't think he's a bad quarterback. I don't think he's a bust. It's way too early. I hate those people in the media who are very quick to judge and label guys as bust. Kyler Murray is far from being a bust. I think he'll be a good player. So I think he's Baker Mayfield. No, absolutely not. Baker Mayfield, he's got the X factor. Kyler Murray's kind of a quieter guy. I don't know. I don't see that like in him. But I think there's enough veterans in that team that he doesn't have to be, at least like for the next season or two, that he doesn't have to be the leader. He can still kind of be like a secondary player. But he's got athleticism that's unmatched. The speed, you can see his speed is crazy. It's just his arm, I think, is not that good. And I think the height actually plays a big deal of it. You see him kind of getting scared and always like looking to scramble out and throw. And I think that's because he's just scared to be in the pocket. I think he's too short. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe he just needs to learn the awareness. Maybe a couple games in, he'll start figuring out, and the game will slow down for him. And here's another guy. So here's the guy that I kind of been really disappointed about, and that's Dante Pettis. And that kind of hits home. I'm a 49ers fan, so Dante Pettis, the last couple of weeks of the last season, he was looking good, man. He was the real deal, but I don't know what's going on now. Last 2 weeks, so Kyle Shanahan came out with a quote saying that everyone has to earn their job. Nobody has a guaranteed job. And Dante Pettis has been put out. He was week 1. People were surprised that he was out, and he really didn't do much. And then last week he really didn't do much. And honestly, he's you can see his route running is good and all, but he just hasn't been getting open as much as other guys like Kendrick Bourne, Jalen Hurd, and Raheem Mostert. He's a running back, and he's showing up more in the passing game than Dante Pettis is. And obviously, there's a lot to say about Kyle Shanahan's scheme, but maybe Shanahan's just trying not to reveal something. He's got plays for Pettis. But if you're in fantasy and looking to draft a receiver, I would honestly stay away from the 49ers because you really don't know. Dante Pettis, he's good. He's clearly the most talented guy on the team. Well, of course, like as a receiver, George Kittle is more talented, I think, as an overall player, or at least he's shown more as an overall player. But Dante Pettis has definitely done a lot, and I just think that in due time, I think he'll find his groove and he'll be back. But it's a little concerning, at least to say the least, that he's not showing up at preseason like that. He's playing against backups. He should be dominating. He should be like making it look easy right now. And I don't know. I'm not gonna stress out too much right now. Say week 3, week 4, he's still gonna be like this. That's when I'll come back on the podcast and be, you know what, I think there's something wrong with Dante Pettis. But yeah, I'll stay away. Debo Samuel, he looked good too. I like the end around. He's just as fast as advertised. The guy's not scared to get hit. I like that about him. But he's also kind of like, you don't know how Kyle Shannon's going to use him. He's talking about rotating, stuff like that. So you don't know that. And then Jalen Hurd, I just wouldn't advise. I don't know. I don't think he's going to be getting enough meaningful snaps to be actually fantasy relevant. And there's so many other guys that you can get in fantasy football that I think will provide you with a much better value and way more points. So let's look at the 49ers preseason game. Let's just kind of go into depth in that one. So Jimmy G, yeah, he did not look good. So just like Dante, I think I'd say the same. That it was only week 2 of the preseason. So obviously it's not good when your quarterback is 0 for 6 and throws a pick, and honestly should have thrown 2 picks. But he's trying to figure things out. Yeah, he looked bad in the pocket, but I think he's trying to get used into the game. And I think we'll see next week what's going to happen, and I think we'll see week 4 what's going to happen. And just like Dante Pettis, if he's still playing as if man, and Jimmy Garoppolo comes out there and he's awful, I could see maybe something happen. I don't know. Nick Mullins has looked good. CJ Beathard actually has looked pretty good too. So I think the quarterback competition is a lot closer than people might think. That I think, especially with the reports that earlier in the season, remember when people were saying that Kirk Cousins, that Kyle Shanahan, the way that they made Jimmy G's contract, so they can cut him at one point or even trade for Kirk Cousins, and they wouldn't lose too much money or they wouldn't be too upset about it. And I don't know how much truth there is in that, but I think a lot of the times when there's smoke or when there's fire, there's smoke. So I think even though Jimmy G will probably still be the starter, maybe they're kind of looking at alternatives. Maybe Nick Mullins, maybe CJ Beathard, maybe they're even looking outside of the team. Maybe Kirk Cousins. But it's all speculation up until now, and I think I don't know. I like Jimmy 2 years ago, the 5-game win streak. He was good then, I think, and he was good in New England. I think if he just pieces it together, stays healthy, I think he can have a solid season. And definitely, I've heard people say that like a sleeper MVP pick. I don't know, man. That's saying a lot, but it's the potential is there. There's all sorts of potential with Jimmy Garoppolo. Next one, I think Solomon Thomas. Dude, recently I saw an Instagram pic. The guy looked, man, he looked jacked, like on steroids. Man, and it's looking good. I don't know. He's a story that like I really want him to succeed. Like everything that's happened with his sister, and he was labeled a bust very quickly, especially like 3rd overall pick. People just expected him to perform, and he's kind of been I don't know, he's been below average to say the least. But I think this year, and especially like in the preseason, he's been doing very good. You saw there was one play where he completely just threw the offensive guard on the ground, and that's impressive. That's the solid. I've never seen that solid before. So maybe I don't know, D coordinator Robert Saleh, and I don't know, maybe the guys figured out how to use him more efficiently and play him inside because that's his more natural position. And maybe he's gonna show some results. I'm definitely pulling for him. He's a story that I really want to happen. Okay, so another guy that was the big Mitch Wishnowsky, he laid out the boom on the kick returner. And I don't know, I was one of those guys who was spectacle, a 4th rounder on a punter. And Mitch is very good. I've seen his punts, dude. They're good. He's probably a top punter in the league, and that's just 2 games he's already played. But is a 4th rounder ever worth it on a punter? I don't know. Time will tell. But I definitely see the defense getting more favorable, matchups and stuff like that, field position. So I don't know, maybe it's a good thing. Maybe Mitch Wishnowsky was definitely worth a 4th. Let's see, Kendrick Bourne. Kendrick Bourne was one guy who I was very intrigued by. So coming in, he was one of the guys who was labeled as cut, like a potential cut. And Lemire last week was saying that he thinks Kendrick Bourne could be cut. And I think after this game, he's definitely proved that he deserves a spot on the team. The guy's a beast. He can play in the slot. He plays outside. He's a beast. He dropped one ball, but other than that, he's got pretty good hands. I don't think his hands are something to be concerned about. And the toe tap, I don't know. Some people were calling toe drag, but it was a tap, but it was still nice. It was beautiful. That's the type of play that's an elite wide receiver type play. That's not just a regular guy being on the fringe of getting cut type catch. That's a guy trying to show out, try to keep his job. And I'm very happy. I really like Kendrick Bourne. He's an undrafted guy. He's got a little chip on his shoulder, and I like that whole group of the undrafted guys. You have Matt Breida. You have Adrian Colbert. Well, he wasn't undrafted. He was a 7th rounder, but I think he still fits in that list where he's got that chip on his shoulder where he feels like he was picked a little late. And I think Tim Harris could be a guy who could be like that too. I really like his game. I think he should have been drafted earlier, but he's he's an older end, and he's also had injuries in college. So but those are guys that are kind of like a low risk, high reward type guys, and it's shown in history that John Lynch has been good with those type of guys, and they've provided like positive impact on the team. So let's talk about one big piece of news that's happened last week was Josh Gordon. Josh Gordon finally came back to the Patriots. He got reinstated by the NFL. Roger Goodell let him back in. And to be honest, I'm a little pissed. I had N'Keal Harry in a couple of my fantasy leagues, and I don't know if he's going to be as good as I thought he would be. I didn't think Josh Gordon would be back, honestly. Maybe I thought he'd be back like halfway through the season. But him being back this early still means he can figure out the playbook. He can kind of figure out his way in this offense, and he can be a contributor. So I would say his fantasy outlook is definitely positive, and that people should, I don't know. I would say stay away from drafting him, but if he's in the waiver, definitely pick him up. I think that's a pickup, and he's really there's not especially this early in fantasy football, there's really not a whole lot of risk associated with picking him up. It's not like you're going to be missing out on that many guys because like you haven't really seen anybody, and he's a guy I think that he'll guarantee that he'll put up some points. Him and Tom Brady have good chemistry. They worked out I think over the summer, so I don't know. We'll see how it goes, but it's definitely worse for the rookies. N'Keal Harry is going to be a lot worse for him. And then, Braxton Berrios, he's been a rookie, but he was injured last year. So a lot of those guys that are like the younger guys that you thought maybe could be showing out, I don't think they'll be having as big of an impact, especially Edelman's still there. Edelman's elite. And then you got Josh Gordon, and Josh Gordon could be elite. So I don't know. Time will tell. Bill Belichick is a mysterious guy. You can't really predict what he's going to do in fantasy football. Okay, so on to our last kind of piece of news is Hard Knocks. So that was on Tuesday. And it was an interesting episode. It was pretty much revolved around Antonio Brown's, the helmet saga, which is, kind of one of those things you don't hear about that much. Like last year, there was nobody complaining about helmets, and this is really the first kind of like equipment drama. Like I don't know, it's kind of ridiculous. Since Deflategate, this is probably the biggest like equipment drama. And Antonio Brown, it's like on and off. He finds a helmet, then the league bans it again, and he's trying to fight again, and he leaves training camp, then he comes back, and then he leaves it again, and I don't know. He's in and out of the team. A lot of people, there was a lot of rumors a few months back that Antonio Brown would be traded to the Niners, and I was one that was actually kind of excited about it because I think Antonio Brown, if he's got his head straight, he's the best receiver in the league. There's the statistics back it up, but I don't know. I definitely agree with John Lynch's decision. I think he did a good job with not taking him because there is a lot of risk associated with him, and that's what Mike Mayock and John Gruden are facing right now. They are facing the risk associated, with his diva attitude. Yeah, but so the episode was mainly focused on that, but there's other parts. I think Derek Carr was an interesting part, but he kind of to be honest, Derek Carr has kind of disappointed me as like the quarterback of Hard Knocks. Last year, Baker Mayfield, man, he was probably the coolest guy to watch. He's got the confidence, he's got like the charisma, and then comes out Derek Carr, and he's kind of boring to be honest. He's kind of just seems like Gruden's puppet. He repeats what Gruden wants, and he just doesn't seem like he has a personality, and that's what kind of makes him not interesting for me. But one guy that I think really changed is Jonathan Abram. He was kind of one of those guys that at least the first episode I was like, what the fuck, dude, this guy's annoying. Second episode, I thought this guy's annoying. But in third episode, he kind of changed, and there's something, I started kind of liking him. And he's kind of grown on me, I'm going to say. Jonathan Abram has grown on me. He is, he's a little bit, he's too much of a goofster sometimes, but I think he's a damn good football player, and I think he's entertaining. So he definitely works for the show, and I think he's slowly growing. I mean, he's one of my favorite players in the defense now. I think him and Carl Joseph are going to have a monster year, and LaMarcus Joyner's there too. The Raiders have a good safety core. So let's see. I think the Raiders actually one thing I see about them and that I see with the new Niners is kind of like they have this fun dynamic. Before you kind of didn't see that with the Raiders, especially like in their like body chemistry and stuff. The Jack Del Rio Raiders, they just didn't seem like they were having that much fun. And it's kind of like what you saw with the Jim Tom Sula, the Chip Kelly 49ers. They just weren't having fun. And I think both franchises, the both Bay Area franchises, have really turned around, and you can see just the new attitude. There's a fun dynamic with the team, and I think it's fun to watch. It's fun to watch from like if the players are having fun, but it's also fun like for the people who are viewing it, the fans. It's kind of you feed off of it that the team is having fun, you're having fun. So the last thing I kind of wanted to look at were the guys who on Hard Knocks who could be like feel good stories or could be risers, even like in fantasy football. Maybe you can look at them later in the year. And I think Darren Waller and Keelan Doss, those are the two guys who I would really look at. And both of them have been big stories on Hard Knocks. They've been both kind of featured, like they've had their own like 10-minute segment on the show. And they've both been really good in preseason. They've both shown that they have the ability to be like a high level starter. And I think the Raiders offense, especially for Keelan Doss, it could be really good for him. He can be like a slot receiver. And it could be kind of him and like Hunter Renfrow. And, there's a lot of talented guys in that receiver room. And I think Keelan Doss could be someone good. Maybe there's an injury that happens. I don't know, Tyrell Williams get injured or something like that. Keelan Doss could be a guy that you might want to look up on the waiver wire to pick up. And then other guy is Darren Waller. He had that whole thing with his drug addiction. And he's back now, which is that's very good for him. That's a difficult thing to come back from. And he just seems motivated and he seems talented. He's got the ability, he's got the ability. And he's on a team that I think, like just like I said with Keelan Doss, I think it fits him. He could be getting, if people are locking up Antonio Brown and the run game with Josh Jacobs is kind of getting locked up. Darren Waller, the big guy, he's kind of like their big threat. You got Tyrell Williams, who's tall, but the real like red zone, throw it up type guy. That's Darren Waller. So those are two guys that I think fantasy football that I look at, and I think Darren Waller would probably be the sooner guy you look at. Maybe even now, like if you're in a really deep league, I would think maybe a Darren Waller. But Keelan Doss could be someone later in the year that you pick up, to help you out with the team. So let's just finish off this podcast and let's look at the matchups for next week, for week 3 of the preseason. So I got a couple flagged or a couple starred that I think are interesting. So I think Cardinals-Vikings will be interesting. So like I mentioned before, Kyler Murray, he just hasn't looked good. And the Vikings, everybody knows that's an elite pass rush right there. That's potentially the best, like group of pass rushers in the league. Like the Rams have a good group. The 49ers could be up there too, but I think the Vikings have they have an established group of veterans they know what they're doing. And just gonna be interesting to see how Kyler Murray is gonna face the adversity. He's coming off this week that he played really bad, and he's gonna have all this pressure in his face, and he kind of you got to see what he's made of. Is he really that number one pick, that Heisman winning type guy, or is he gonna crumble and I don't know, maybe play into the bust narrative? So that's one of those things that I'd be interested in to see. And then Texans Cowboys, obviously that's interesting. The Texas rivalry, the Cowboys Texans. It's going to be an interesting game to see. There's not a whole lot of players that I really highlight, but I say you see the Ezekiel Elliott drama, and then you also see the Texans need a running back. Maybe, I don't know. That'd be an interesting trade, at least thinking about it in your head, like fantasy-wise trade. Ezekiel Elliott on the Texans could be interesting, Deshaun Watson with Ezekiel Elliott, and especially the whole drama about that he's moving from a rival team from the Cowboys to the Texans. That'd be interesting. But I think the most interesting game, especially for me, is the 49ers and Chiefs, because that's throwback, especially it's in KC. It's going to be where Jimmy Garoppolo tore his ACL a little bit under a year now, and I think Jimmy has to come out. So last week he played awful. I think just like Kyler Murray, he's got to come out. He's got to kind of brush off the haters, and he's got to prove to them that I tore my ACL here, but that's not lingering or anything like that. He's got to prove the haters wrong, and he's got to show the people that there's a reason why the 49ers paid him so much money. And I think if he can do that, I think the narrative will definitely change. Like next week, I could be talking about how Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be future MVP and how Kyler Murray is going to be Rookie of the Year. And I don't know. It's going to be interesting. I'm excited for NFL football. There's 2 more weeks left of preseason, and then we got week 1 starting, and I'm excited for that. Yeah, fantasy football drafts are happening. If you haven't had it yet, it's gonna come on in the next week or so. You're gonna have your fantasy draft. So those are exciting times. yeah, so I apologize once again for the short episode. We're gonna resume with hour-long episodes next week, and we're gonna try to do more Friday episodes. I know we promised that before. We're gonna try to do more Friday basketball episodes, and I think those will be formatted more like this, kind of a shorter episode. So yeah, thank you for listening. Have a good day, and